Your brain's primary rendering engine is permanently bugged to make you believe you are the absolute center of the universe, which makes dropping your phone in public feel like a federal crime. Today, we'll audit the spotlight effect, a severe hardware mismatch where your caveman firmware confuses a public gym with a tribal tribunal. We will test how this evolutionary glitch causes a catastrophic ego crash when you scroll social media, and then exploit it to unlock total NPC freedom. Hit that like button before your brain.exe fully crashes, and subscribe to patch the bug. Protocol initialized. You enter a brightly lit Los Angeles public gym, a hostile PvP zone swarming with tripods and unearned confidence. Your brain immediately scans the room for threats. Mostly 19-year-olds with better genetics and TikTok sponsors. You approach the squat rack, ready to establish your position in the local tribal hierarchy. And then, you take one step backward, and your foot finds an abandoned 45-pound plate. Time slows down as your internal physics engine completely fails. You hit the floor with the grace of a dropped watermelon. Instantly, your brain's threat detection system overrides all rational thought. The paranoia meter redlines before you even feel the physical pain. Welcome to the spotlight effect. Your neural pathways genuinely believe the entire server just stopped to witness your failure. In your mind, the music stops, the treadmills halt, and every single head snaps in your direction. Your primitive software renders an impromptu jury of your peers, ready to exile you from the tribe. You are absolutely certain the girl filming her glute workout caught your demise in 4K resolution. The brain initiates emergency protocol. Play it off like a dynamic stretching routine. You hold the pose, praying the NPCs will just despawn and forget. But the spotlight effect doesn't care about reality. It just cranks the contrast on your insecurities. You do the classic quick scan of the room, just to confirm how many people are secretly laughing at you. Here is the brutal truth. Nobody saw a thing. Everyone else's rendering engine is too busy running their own personal spotlight effect to notice yours. Yet your local instance of reality is completely ruined. The only logical next step is to overcompensate and prove you belong here. To understand why a simple trip feels like a public execution, we have to open up the hood of your hardware. Meet the default mode network, essentially your brain's dedicated ego engine. For 200,000 years, your survival depended on not getting kicked out of a small tribe of hunters. If the tribe thought you were a clumsy idiot, they literally left you to the wolves. So your firmware hard-coded a simple rule: social approval equals not dying. This is why your amygdala treats a minor gym fail as a Class A extinction event. Science calls this the egocentric bias. Because you are trapped in first-person mode, you naturally assume everyone else is actively spectating your gameplay. You anchor the entire server's attention to your specific coordinates. But the rendering engine is severely outdated and incredibly buggy. It runs a constant background process, scanning the environment for social threats. Oh, a guy laughed in the corner? He must be laughing at your calves. A girl looked in your general direction? She is clearly drafting a tweet about your terrible form. Your brain connects completely invisible dots to build a conspiracy theory where you are the star. It spikes your cortisol, dilates your pupils, and prepares you for mortal combat against embarrassment, which is a completely useless physiological buff. You can't punch social awkwardness in the face, and you definitely can't outrun a bruised ego. So your software just freezes up and throws a critical blue screen. The spotlight effect artificially inflates the radius of people who actually give a damn by roughly 1,000%. In reality, the average NPC has a render distance of about 3 feet. They are entirely consumed by their own internal glitchy spotlight effects. It is a massive multiplayer lobby where every single player thinks they are the host and assumes everyone else is just a background asset rendering their personal drama. But try telling that logic to a guy whose paranoia is currently redlining at maximum capacity. To recover from the critical ego damage of the weight plate incident, your brain attempts a hard reset. If you can't be invisible, you must become the undisputed star of the server. Psychology calls this compensatory narcissism. We call it Main character syndrome. By setting up a camera, you are unconsciously trying to wrest control of the narrative back from the hostile NPCs. If you are the director, the tripod is your shield against perceived judgment. You aren't a clumsy guy who tripped on a 45-pound plate anymore. You are a dedicated athlete documenting your legendary grind for the timeline. Take 1. You unrack the bar. The weight feels heavy, but your ego carries it. You hit the depth, you rack the weight, you rush to the phone to review the cinematic masterpiece. It is entirely unusable. A background NPC walked past the frame in a weird hat, ruining the aesthetic isolation. Delete! Reset the scene. The world must see perfection. Take 4. You adjust the lighting so your non-existent shadows look dramatic. Take 7. The physical stamina is draining, but the social validation engine demands blood. You add extra chalk, not for grip, but for the particle effects. You choke on the chalk dust, but hold the alpha pose. Take 12. The rep is absolute garbage, but the angle hides it perfectly. This is the one, the holy grail of curated reality. Now begins the rigorous post-production phase of your deception. You apply the grind set filter, slap on some generic aggressive funk music, and draft the caption. Just me and the iron, no distractions. You conveniently ignore the fact that you spent 45 minutes orchestrating a 5-second clip. This is the final form of the spotlight effect, manufacturing the spotlight yourself. You hit publish. The payload is deployed to the digital leaderboard. For 3 glorious minutes, you feel like a god among NPCs. The dopamine receptors are primed, waiting for the sweet drip of social validation. Your brain has successfully overwritten the trauma of tripping over the plate. You are back on top of the tribal hierarchy. You have dominated the server. But your hubris has blinded you to a fatal flaw in the system. You aren't playing in a local lobby anymore. You just connected to the global algorithm. You open the app to check on your digital masterpiece, expecting an influx of absolute worship. You got 3 likes, 2 bots, and your mom. To cope with the disappointment, your thumb performs an autonomous, fatal swipe down to the Explore page. Welcome to the algorithm's arena, a global coliseum optimized purely to destroy your self-esteem. Instantly, the system feeds you the ultimate endgame boss of fitness. Meet Chad. He is 19 years old, has 0 body fat, and his genetics were apparently forged by Zeus. Your brain's social comparison bias engages immediately. In a sane world, you would realize this guy is a professional athlete, heavily subsidized by lighting and performance enhancers. But your caveman rendering engine doesn't understand curated media. It processes screens as absolute reality. Your software literally thinks this genetic freak is a guy in your immediate hunting party. And by comparison, you are the weakest link in the entire evolutionary chain. The ego health bar takes catastrophic, unmitigated damage. You desperately try to swipe away, but the algorithm has already analyzed your watch time. It knows exactly what ruins your day, and it serves you 10 more identical clones. It is an endless conveyor belt of people living their absolute best highlights, directly injected into your worst Tuesday. You read the comments, a fatal rookie mistake. Thousands of faceless NPCs praising the alpha, confirming your absolute irrelevance. Your brain desperately attempts the "he is on steroids" defense mechanism to salvage the ego, but it fails. The social comparison bias has fully bypassed your firewall. You look back at your own video, the one you spent 45 minutes filming. It no longer looks like a legendary grind. It looks like a cry for help. You delete the post. The ego drops to absolute 0. The tripod beside you now stands as a humiliating monument to your failed vanity. This is the paradox of the modern hardware. You are hypervisible to yourself, but completely invisible to the global leaderboard. Your primitive brain registers this low social rank as a literal death sentence. Cortisol floods the system. The gym environment suddenly feels actively hostile. Every mirror is mocking you. Every plate is a tripping hazard. Your software has successfully soft-locked itself in a state of terminal inadequacy. You are trapped between the spotlight effect highlighting your flaws and the algorithm proving you are nothing. Unless you find a way to hack the rendering engine and purposefully break the simulation. To understand why your brain crashed so spectacularly, we need to review your factory specifications. Your hardware was optimized exactly 50,000 years ago, and there have been 0 major patches since. During the Paleolithic beta test, your entire server population consisted of maybe 100 people. If you were the 3rd fastest runner in the tribe, you were practically a local god. You didn't need to be the absolute best in the world. You just needed to be slightly better than Greg, who had a bad limp. Your internal status tracking software was designed to monitor a very small, very static leaderboard. Fast forward to today, you willingly installed a glowing rectangle in your pocket that connects you to 8 billion competing players. You took a biological processor built for a tiny local network and brute forced it into a massive global server. This is a textbook evolutionary mismatch. Your brain is trying to run modern algorithm software on literal mud hut architecture. You are no longer competing with Greg the Limping Gatherer. You are competing with a teenager in Sweden who deadlifts a truck and a guy in Dubai doing backflips on a yacht. The algorithm strips away your local achievements and forces you directly into the bottom 1% of the global rankings. Your primitive status tracking module cannot logically comprehend that these people live thousands of miles away. Because you see them right there on the screen, your amygdala classifies them as direct, immediate threats to your survival in the tribe. It is exactly like bringing a wooden spear to a server, where everyone else just bought the orbital laser DLC. So, your system defaults to the only response it has: constant, baseline panic. The spotlight effect and the social comparison bias now team up for a devastating combo attack. The spotlight effect tricks you into thinking everyone is watching your every move. And the comparison bias guarantees that whoever is watching is definitely, infinitely better, stronger, and cooler than you. You are trapped in a biological softlock, a perpetual feeling of being an irrelevant background NPC in your own existence. This perfectly explains your pathetic tripod experiment in the gym. You thought that by curating your image, you could cheat the global leaderboard and trick the system. But you cannot out-curate an algorithm explicitly designed to harvest your exact insecurities. It knows exactly what you hate about your calves, and it monetizes the gap between you and perfection. Your primitive brain is absolutely defenseless against a multi-billion-dollar behavioral slot machine. If we leave the software running on default settings, the ego will eventually permanently blue screen. Traditional coping mechanisms won't work here. Positive affirmations are just putting a band-aid on a corrupted hard drive. We need to execute a radical system override to purposefully crash the rendering engine. We have to prove to your caveman firmware that the spotlight doesn't actually exist. And there is only one way to safely test the limits of the simulation: controlled, intentional, public humiliation. Welcome to the official system audit patch notes. Since you cannot outthink a hardware limitation, we have to stress test the physics engine manually. Psychology calls this exposure therapy. Game devs call it intentionally crashing the simulation to read the error logs. Your amygdala firmly believes that looking stupid in public results in immediate physical death by tribal exile. The only way to rewrite this corrupted code is to prove the prediction completely wrong. To do this, we need an item with maximum cringe stats. Behold, the most ridiculous hat legally available for purchase. Equipping this item instantly drops your camouflage to 0 and spikes your visibility to maximum. The mission objective is simple: walk down a crowded street wearing it. But the moment you even think about putting it on, your biological firewall triggers a massive panic attack. The spotlight effect begins rendering terrifying pre-visualizations of your absolute destruction. Your brain shows you people pointing, laughing, and calling the fashion police to arrest you. It convinces you that someone will definitely film this and put it on the algorithm's arena. You will be known globally as the stupid hat guy for the rest of your natural life. This is the social comparison bias trying to keep you safely locked in your room where you can't lose any more status. but staying inside means the bug remains permanently in your code. You have to force the override. You put the hat on. You look absolutely phenomenal. If by phenomenal you mean completely unhinged. The ego shields are officially down. You are totally defenseless. You grip the doorknob. Your heart rate is equivalent to jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. You open the door and step out into the Los Angeles sunlight. The server is fully populated today. Dozens of NPCs are wandering the sidewalk. The spotlight effect instantly powers up to maximum wattage. You brace for the impact. You expect the music to stop, the heads to snap, and the laughter to begin. Your internal logic gates are absolutely screaming that this is a fatal error. You take the first step into the active player zone. Paranoia meter is pegged at 99%. You walk past the first background character, a guy drinking iced coffee. You wait for his targeting system to lock on to your idiot hat. The ultimate stress test of your ego has officially commenced. Let's see if reality crashes. The guy with the iced coffee takes a sip. He doesn't even blink in your direction. Your brain assumes his rendering engine just hasn't loaded your character model yet. You keep walking. A couple approaches from the opposite direction. This is it, the direct confrontation. Prepare for the social execution. They walk straight past you. The girl is complaining about her landlord. Not a single glance, not a snicker, not a pointing finger. Your amygdala is confused. The threat scan is returning absolutely 0 results. You step into a crosswalk. Dozens of cars are stopped at the red light. A captive audience. Surely the drivers will mock you and validate your intense paranoia. The driver is furiously picking his nose and staring at his phone. He is fully immersed in his own local server. You do not exist. You walk an entire block. You pass a group of teenagers, the apex predators of social judgment. If anyone is going to end your career, it's them. One of them looks up, makes direct eye contact, and then looks right back down at TikTok. Your brain's physics engine completely shatters. You are wearing the most embarrassing item in the game's database, and no one cares. You start actively trying to get noticed. You do a little skip, you wave your arms. A pigeon flies away. That is the entire extent of your impact on the universe. The spotlight effect is rapidly running out of battery. It simply cannot sustain the illusion of your importance without external validation. This is the brutal, liberating truth of the global server. Everyone is the main character in their own corrupted save file. The girl on the phone is stressing about rent. The driver is stressing about traffic. You do not have the RAM to render their problems, and they definitely do not have the RAM to render yours. The paranoia meter drops from 99% to absolute 0. The biological software finally registers a system update. You realize that your perceived audience is completely, entirely imaginary. It was never a tribal tribunal. It was just an empty gymnasium. And the algorithm's leaderboard? A behavioral loop meant to sell you protein powder. The illusion is fully shattered. You have successfully hacked your own brain. You finally accept the most beautiful, liberating truth the game engine has to offer. You are an NPC, a background character in 8 billion other separate instances of reality. The main character syndrome was never a buff. It was a massive, system-draining debuff that nerfed your happiness. Shedding that digital weight is like taking off a 100-pound backpack you didn't know you were wearing. You take off the idiot hat, not out of shame, but because you just don't need the patch anymore. You return to the public gym, the original PvP zone where your brain.exe first crashed. The tripods are still there. The influencers are still doing 15 takes of the exact same bicep curl. But your rendering engine has completely changed. You see the code behind the matrix. You realize they aren't judging you. They are desperately hoping you are judging them. The comparison bias is permanently firewalled. Chad from the algorithm cannot hurt you in the real world. You approach the squat rack again. You load the bar. You step back, and you immediately trip over a completely different 45-pound plate. You hit the floor. The exact same physical impact, but this time, absolutely nothing happens. The paranoia meter doesn't even twitch. No tribal council is summoned. No theatrical spotlights drop from the sky. You just lie there for a second, enjoying the absolute bliss of total social irrelevance. A guy steps directly over your body to grab a dumbbell. He doesn't even look down. It is a total skill issue on the brain's part, and you have finally patched it. You are free to be aggressively average. You are free to have terrible form. You can just play the game without constantly checking if anyone is spectating your lobby. The biological machinery that tortured you for 100,000 years is finally asleep. You have ascended. Ego deflated. Freedom unlocked. Of course, this absolute state of Zen enlightenment is completely temporary. In about 3 hours, the algorithm will send you a push notification showing your ex living her best life on a yacht. And your brain.exe will instantly revert to factory settings and try to buy a new ring light. Because you can patch the software, but the hardware is still deeply, hilariously flawed. But for right now, the server is peaceful, and you are just a happy little NPC. Hit subscribe before your reality check drops back to 0. Like the video if you've ever completely ruined your own day in the gym, and share this with your local tribal council. System audit complete. See you in the next lobby.